We open in sickbay to see the Doctor being brought online. When asking who booted him up, we discover that nobody did. It was an automated procedure when the ship entered red alert. Oh, and everybody on the ship has disappeared. Oh, and the ship is in bad shape with loads of stuff shut down. Oh, and the computer doesn't know how either of these things happened. There are bridge logs though. The last of them suggest shit went real bad and everyone abandoned ship. As he's about to terminate his program, there's a noise at the door. He responds with what you could generously describe as caution, which seems somewhat odd for a character that essentially cannot be harmed and is aware of this. We discover it's B'Elanna at the door. She says there are no life signs because the internal sensors got messed up in a Kazon attack, both of which seem like things the computer would have logged, but what do I know? The Doc starts treating B'Elanna for an injury. Funny thing though, the tricorder doesn't work on B'Elanna, almost as though she wasn't really there, and on no account should you link this information with the title of the episode. Anyway, she says everybody ejected because of the attack and got hoovered up by the Kazon, save for her and Janeway, who stayed aboard to try and stop the ship from going kaboom. They succeeded, barely, but now Janeway's trapped by a beam on the bridge, which is an odd place to be when you're fixing something in engineering, but again, what do I know? B'Elanna says the Doc needs to go up to the bridge and help Janeway. Sadly, this is impossible, unless they've spent weeks installing holographic emitters in critical areas of the ship and just didn't mention it, which apparently they did, so that's handy. After B'Elanna warns him to stay away from any electrical stuff that's acting screwy and to try and not get shot, we send him up to the bridge. He finds Janeway, but again the tricorder isn't working on her and... Seriously though, don't pay any attention to the episode title, alright? Okay. The Doc wakes her up and explains the situation just in time for B'Elanna to get the intercom working again, which is handy. She can get the warp core working again, but it's going to take a while. As she's doing that, Janeway and the Doc start trying to repair things while surrounded by corpses. To make things worse, Neelix is both alive and calling them. There's a Kazon in the mess hall, and the only person who can help in time is the Doctor, so off we go again. When he arrives, the Kazon and Neelix are engaged in battle, by which I mean Neelix is throwing fruit while the guy with a gun cowers, and I hate to keep banging this drum, but the Kazon really are a terrible nemesis. The Doc lends a hand with a whisk, and then Neelix twats the guy with a pan. One thing though, the Doctor took a nasty bump and is bleeding. This would be understandable, but for the fact that bleeding isn't in his programming. The Doc is transferred back to sickbay and, whilst treating his head, discovers that he has life signs. Asking the computer if his program has been altered, the computer responds that the emergency medical hologram program does not exist. Furthermore, it says the chief medical officer of Voyager is a Dr. Zimmerman, who happens to be the guy who created the Doc's program. Just then, Janeway and co arrive with the Kazon prisoner. He explains the whole "you're not real but I am" thing to them, and Janeway says it might be a projector issue, so she's going to turn him off and on again, and I'll give some points here to the writers for understanding advanced tech support. That doesn't affect him though, so she goes big brain on it and tells the computer to shut off all holograms, and you can probably guess where this is going. On checking, it seems that all of Voyager's crew are holograms, save for the Doc. Then we're interrupted by Murdoch from the A-Team. I'm being facetious here, Dwight Schultz actually has quite an impressive voice acting career. In fact, if you're a video gamer, there's a pretty good chance you've played something he's been in. Anyway, Murdoch says this whole Voyager thing is bullshit, and the Doc is really Louis Zimmerman. The whole thing is a simulation that Zimmerman wrote, but he's gone a little screwy and started to believe it. This could have been because of a radiation surge in the station he says they're on, and that this might also have been what caused the holodeck to go a little strange. Zimmerdoc's not buying it though, so Murdoch reminds him about the whole pain thing by slapping him. Zimmerdoc responds in kind, and Murdoch says he needs to go discuss this with some other people, but he'll be back. When he returns, he says that radiation stuff is really super bad, and will kill him in an hour. The only way to escape is to conclude the program, which means either getting home, which will take 75 years, or by destroying the ship. Zimmerdoc's still not buying it, so Murdoch goes away to restart the program, resetting everything to when Zimmerdoc believes he was first activated during the medical emergency in the first episode. Murdoch comes back and Paris is an arsehole to him, proving that even holographic Tom Paris is a dick. Zimmerdoc has fun deleting him though, so that's a bonus. Murdoch convinces Zimmerdoc that if he takes the holographic memory core offline and doesn't cease to exist, he must be real. Off to engineering then. Janeway's down there stopping the warp core from blowing up, so we have a little banter with her, then Zimmerdoc tries to delete her, which doesn't work. So Janeway tries to arrest them, which might be dangerous, as the safety protocols seem to not be working again, and seriously though, who the fuck was in charge of designing the holodeck, because this shit happens every single time. Handily, because this is a rerun of the first episode where they all get teleported to an alien array, that happens, and Murdoch and Zimmerdoc are left alone. They go over to the holographic memory bank and Zimmerdoc poops some yellow on it and continues to exist. Zimmerdoc's still not super convinced though. Then he experiences some pain, which Murdoch says is because of the radiation, which, now that I think about it, should be affecting Murdoch too, since he says he's being projected into the holodeck from just 15 meters away, but I suspect we're not meant to think of that, so let's ignore it. That's enough to kick him into action, and he gets ready to poop yellow up the warp core to kaboom the ship. Then Chakotay turns up and tells him not to. See, he says that this is all a hologram, but a different one to what Murdoch says. He says that the Doc is on the holodeck on Voyager after Janeway told him to take some time off, but it went fucky with his program and they've been trying to reach him. The two are now linked, and if he destroys Voyager, he'll delete himself. Given the choice between blowing up the ship or waiting for Voyager's crew to fix him, he's overcome, and honestly, I've stopped caring too by now, so I'm with you on this one. Then Kez turns up, but it's actually Zimmerdoc's wife, but it's actually a fantasy, but whatever. Then he wakes up while he's complimenting fake Kez's wife, which is pretty awkward given that the real one is standing there. It's all over and we're back on Voyager, and it's at this point that I notice we've still got a good 5 minutes of runtime left, so what's the betting this is a fake out and he's still on the holodeck? Oh, fuck off. There's some weirdness that's not quite as bad as Neelix's nightmare sequence in the Season 1 episode called Jatrell, but it's pretty close. Then the Doc wakes up again, but for realsies this time because the show's nearly over. He's on the holodeck and everything's normal again. He goes to sickbay and Kez tells him not to mention that whole wife thing to Neelix because he's a toxically possessive arsehole, and we fly away. End of episode.